Hey garden friends, I am out getting ready to pot up some things and start a few seeds. But today I wanted to talk about how your garden, maybe it started to feel a little bit overwhelming, or gardening has started to feel a little bit overwhelming, and how you can fix it. Okay, let's get potting up and chatting. So, yeah, I would say in the digital world, gardening has become so rushed, hectic, expensive, and just a little bit overwhelming. And really, is that what any of us started gardening for? So this also could have been called why a boring garden could be your best garden yet. And why I say that is it's predictable, it's slower, it's just rewarding when you take time. And I know many people are really getting kind of tired of everything digital and the fast pace, like reels. And back in when Instagram started, and I used to love it, I'm rarely on Instagram anymore because of how rushed and hectic and the fast moving pace reels. You can, instead of getting to savor a garden picture where you can look at all the elements, it's going by so fast, you really can't see anything. And yeah, I do like carousels, I think they're called, where there's a bunch of pictures and you can swipe through them and look carefully at things. But that just kind of not emphasizes, but is an example of what I mean about things becoming rushed and harried and expensive sometimes in the gardening digital world. Now, while we're talking, we're going to plant or pot up. Here is a bunch of, these are cuttings I took from geraniums, pelargoniums, zonal geraniums. And yeah, look at how they have just bloomed pretty and got going. Now, I should have cut the flowers off to give more emphasis to the roots growing, but I didn't have the heart. It was just so pretty to see them bloom. But I will share with you a problem I had. Fungus gnats, really bad. I was lazy when potting these cuttings up that I did not pasteurize the soil. That's why I have this bag out here. Potting soil, no matter what brand you get that's been sitting in a garden center, will most likely have fungus gnats because of the nature of them being moist, being exposed to others. It's just how it is. There is no one brand that's worse than another. I will say, for me, anything that has peat moss or coconut coir in it has much more likelihood of being really infested with fungus gnats, because whenever I use those elements in any of my gardens, seed starting or whatever, that's the ones that are the most infected, I would say. Infested, I guess is a better word. Anyways, how to pasteurize. I take a Ziploc baggie and I put the soil in it, shovel a bunch in it, make sure it's moist. I zip it closed with a little bit of a part of it open so steam can escape. And in my microwave, it's 4 minutes, and others start with 2 minutes. And it should heat through and start steaming, and that will help to kill any gnats or their larvae or eggs in there. So that is why I have a bag, and that's what this is. This soil, potting soil, has been pasteurized. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how slowing down could be your best gardening decision you ever make. Somewhere along the line in the last 5 years, gardening has shifted. It shifted to more products, supposedly better plants, trying new things, new tools, new pots, new all this stuff. And it's kind of shifted away from the basics, from what I can tell. And there's all these people saying different things that is more of a sales or marketing tactic than it is garden truth. And the fact is, and this is what I've learned over 40 years of gardening, that gardens don't thrive on constant change. And they don't thrive with the latest gadgets or things like that, the latest plants. They thrive on consistency. So what do I mean by a boring garden? I mean familiar plants, ones that you know thrive for you, repeated routines that you can maintain, and tools that you've used for years and years and you know are effective, and even garden beds that aren't changed a lot. You know what, for these I should really get the deeper pots, huh? I will do that. I will go ahead and pot up here. I have some salvia that I did. This is Estelle salvia, Estella purple container salvia. So yeah, and here's, I started them in these little things and they're doing great, doing fantastic. And this potting soil, yes, I did pasteurize, so I didn't have the fungus gnat problem. Anyways, so a boring gardening's predictable, it's manageable, it doesn't demand constant attention or spending. It is, it's the predictability of it is its strength. Let me get this out of the little eggshell. So in fact, some of the most gorgeous gardens I've ever visited, and Philoli's one of them, is there's nothing dramatic changing from year to year. They plant certain tulips in certain colors and drifts, but the bare bones there, and they also put up pots. And the sunken garden, they pick a different color scheme each year for some of the plants, which is nice. But the overall structure and some of the long borders are old-fashioned, predictable perennials that return year after year. And even the cutting garden, their dahlia garden, it has tried and true varieties that just thrive and are gorgeous. And you know what? You look forward to going back and seeing things like that. Now, one year they had these massive marigolds. I've never been a big marigold fan, but these were gorgeous. And I come to find out they're African marigolds. So I grew some one year, a couple of years ago, and I loved them. And they had a scent. Unlike the short marigolds, they had a very pleasant scent. I find the scent of the shorter marigolds to be, I wouldn't say bad, but I would say they're not my favorite. So anyways, but yeah, the rose garden there is gorgeous, and they're always the same, but you go back and you enjoy them each and every time. They just quietly get better. Get some more. How did gardening become about more? Most of us, we didn't start gardening because we wanted to shop. Though going to a garden center is fun. I get to go shopping for this week for flower beds that I'm in charge of. And that's going to be fun. I'll take you along. So we started because we love being outside. We loved growing things, whether it's flowers or food, and creating something with our hands, getting our hands in the dirt. And we all have read about how the bacteria in the soil can be good for mood and all of that kind of stuff. So there's that. You feel good. Get a dopamine rush. But over time, gardening slowly, the last 5 years especially, has been tied to consumption. Everybody loved my video on over-consumerism in the garden, and with good reason, because it really resonated with people on how everything is pushed now, and it just becomes tiresome. So it was about more plants, more beds, more gadgets, more fertilizers, bins, trays, labels, systems. Buying started to feel like progress. But buying isn't the same as growing. When gardening becomes about accumulation instead of observation, then it stops being peaceful. So actually our gardens teaches us a different pace if we listen to them. The garden itself doesn't rush. It doesn't care about trends. It doesn't care about what's popular this year. It doesn't care or replace something that's just because something newer existed. Plants grow slowly, they repeat themselves in the garden, they return year after year to do the same quiet work. I'm getting sun, it's wonderful. When I started matching my pace to the garden's pace, something shifted. I stopped feeling the urge to buy constantly, I stopped reacting to every new idea, and I started paying attention instead. I hope my glasses aren't giving you too much glare. These salvias are going to be gorgeous. So a slower garden actually really leads you to less spending. And I've mentioned this before, you know, repetition isn't failure. You know, the misconception that if you're growing the same tried and true plants year after year, you've stopped learning. You know, repetition, it's not failure, it's wisdom. And using the same seed trays, or like me, recycled materials. I have found that these plastic egg cartons work great. Usually I have my own eggs. I don't have these unless midwinter my chickens slow down. So I buy eggs at Costco and they come in these, or even I think at Walmart. But when I grow, I use recycled things. I grow dependable plants, the same ones year after year. Like with these tomatoes, early girls do really well for me because we have cooler conditions than many people. The early girls, they may not be the biggest, fattest. They're maybe a hardball, baseball size. But they are reliable and they will bloom all the way until November, not bloom, I should say produce, all the way through November, etc. So they just give me tomatoes much sooner than some of the other varieties that prefer it hot. And also other things like my favorites, like Camp Joy cherry tomato. This one has always been, since I tried it several years ago, one of my favorites. Now many people love Sun Gold. And I had a friend, she's passed away since this, but she always swore she loved Sun Gold, grew it every year. And I says, try Camp Joy. I have found it to be far superior to Sun Gold. And oh, no, she wasn't having that, but I gave her one. I gave her a plant and she grew it. And then after that, all she grew for cherry tomatoes was the Camp Joy. She agreed with me that they were so much better than the Sun Gold. They didn't crack as easy. They had all the flavor. And she was in love. So I'm not going to replace Camp Joy with a newbie, because I have a very small garden, that I don't know how well it grows. So yeah, a tried and true variety, that one, and the other one is Super Sweet 100. This thing mass produces all the way through fall. And I get so many that a lot of times I'm feeding some to my chickens, which they enjoy thoroughly, and is good to go. So I'm just about out of soil for these, so I'm going to have to pasteurize some more before I do any more with this. Here. So yeah, let's continue on with our discussion. I have my notes here. So yeah, when you use that, reusing like my pots, these little pots I've probably had for 15 years. And I reuse them and reuse them. Now they were a good quality. They've held up. There's no reason. Now I bought these. I should say there's no reason for me to buy any more until they are all gone. These I did buy from Bootstrap Farmer. I wanted to try them because I liked the narrow size and the depth. And I've had these for 3 years. They have worked well. I like them. But I don't need to buy any more because I still have so many of these other ones, as well as I'm constantly recycling these when I get a 4-inch pot. These I've also probably had 15 years. And I use them every year over and over. And there's no need for me to buy more. Other things I start seeds in, which I showed you before, but I'll go ahead in case you're new here. These tubs. In fact, I saved this when I was going to rinse it out and I was going to use it again. And this is where I mass sow things and then I pluck them out as they get big enough to pot up. And that works. You do not have to spend a lot of money to get started with seed starting. And if I was to spend money on seed starting, if I wanted to do it earlier, I would spend it on the lights. I would use the recycled materials. I save seeds from year to year that I have because I don't grow a bazillion oregano plants. And many times oregano will reseed. But yeah, you can use that. So that is what I would spend my money on. And these were under my grow lights. You know, they're a good size. And when I plant them, I'll plant them a little bit deeper so they, get stockier. And then when they get a little bit taller, I will pinch them back. And yeah, so you don't need expensive things at all. I'm going to move my camera. Okie dokie. Yeah, and see even my tubs. This graniteware tub, this thing will last forever. And then I have this one, enamelware tub. I got it probably at a junk shop, and it works beautifully. I like leaning towards things that aren't plastic if I can, and so these things will last forever. I had some big plastic tubs. They're actually those restaurant tubs that they put when they're bussing the tables. I see a plant over there that needs water. Anyways, and they eventually cracked, and I had to get rid of them. So yeah, things like this will last forever. These have probably been around 50, 60 years. So I do like using those type of things. So when you're reusing things that work for you, that's not boring, that's experience. You really do have the wisdom then not to be caught up in every new thing. So garden rewards patience and familiarity, consistency, not impulse buying. So there is a quiet luxury to realizing you have enough. You have enough seeds, you have enough plants, you have enough pots, you have enough flowers to enjoy, you have enough to share. Garden vegetables, same there. Yeah, those of us who are gardeners and love to start from seed, we typically start too many or more than we need. And then we have plenty to share. I'm planning on starting some more tomatoes. The early Garrel I started earlier because they can be put out earlier than other varieties. And yeah, but I'm not going to grow or have in my garden 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, one of them's kind of puny. It might not make it, but I'm not going to grow 8. I'll grow 1. I'll grow 1 in my garden. The others will find new homes. So one thing, another luxury, is when you realize that your garden is enough, you have time to sit back, the luxury of sitting back and enjoy it. Buying more doesn't create peace, but having more time does. When your garden is manageable, you're not tempted to fix it with purchases. You feel free to just enjoy it. So this is going to be kind of a series, probably, where we discuss things like boring gardens. And boring, it doesn't mean uninteresting. It means predictable. It means enjoyable, slower pace, all of the above. So let's take the negativity out of the word boring here for this purpose. So what is this series going to be for, or who? For gardeners who have started to feel overwhelmed by the push in the digital world. And those that want to spend less without giving up any of the beauty. And those that are craving calm instead of constant improvement. So yeah, let me refer to my notes. I say in this series, we'll talk about slowing down, working with what we already have, stepping out over consumerism gently, without guilt, without pressure. Because a garden doesn't need to be impressive to be meaningful. So again, a boring garden does not lack creativity. It's the presence of your attention. It's a garden that's allowed to settle, mature, and become itself, just like you are. If gardening has started to feel a little bit loud, this is your permission to let go and slow down. So next time, we will talk about how to stop buying plants and start working with what you already have. And that one shift, that can change a lot in your gardening life. So if this idea resonates with you, I'd love for you to subscribe. Join me for the rest of this series. And if you're feeling a little bit tired of more, you're exactly where you need to be. So I'll see you next time. Bye. So I've got these all potted up. These are the Stella salvias. And I'm just giving them a hit of this Organic Rev, which is a growth stimulant. It will help with any transplant shock. So I just want to make sure I shared how I go ahead and water them in with this. I'm going to water through the soil, and then I'll put the rest in the tray for it to absorb up as it needs. So I'll let that sit in there and they can get rolling. I have room for, like, my tomatoes when I get them potted up, to put in here too. So that's what I will do next. So I just wanted to make sure and show you finishing up my potting up of these and what I do at the end, like that. Okay.